Hello, welcome to another live Google Hangout on the Living Income Guaranteed. And today we are discussing what you should know about war propaganda. We've all seen throughout the news and some of our TV cable sets that there is a war apparently brewing, or more like a war being announced or tried to be placed onto the table by not only the information that we receive, but because of the situations that are being managed mostly as rebellion from the people, as people demanding their right to live in more supportive places, such as we have Ukraine at the moment, wherein there is almost like a verge of civil war going on. And because there is so much being talked about this problem, and for the past, let's say, 9 months or so, from the Syria situation, we've been looking at this war propaganda coming in from various sides. So today we decided that it was adequate to begin talking about these points and get to some commonsensical direction. And for that, we've invited Eleonora Gozzini from Italy. Hello, Ele.
Hi, Marlen. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here with us. And let's begin with this because we have a very fresh point of almost going into war, and this was in Syria. So can you share us more about that conflict and what went wrong in terms of this point not getting into a full war?
Yes, Syria was one of the latest attempts to drag the world into a World War. One of the points that I see for this apparent need to go to war is that we are facing a terrible recession all over the world. And the idea of kickstarting the economy through war is not a new idea. This is, in fact, what we have always done for the past century. It's quite a ludicrous idea, because the idea is that if you destroy everything, then you will create job opportunities to rebuild. It doesn't make much sense. Plus, there are other interests at play in the Middle East and that came in Ukraine later. But in the Middle East, this attempt was started by an apparent chemical attack for which they blamed the Assad regime. They had too many difficulties, though, to prove that it was indeed the regime in power that was attacking the people, and the situation was diffused by the intervention of Russia and Russia, let's say, intelligence, who provided the proof that the regime was not in possession of that specific kind of chemical weapon that was used against the people. So the reason to go to war could no longer be like the last war in Afghanistan, where people said that they were in possession of a weapon of mass destruction, when in fact a few years later they had to say that, well, they were not, because now the people were more aware and more wary of these kind of communications coming from governments, and they didn't take the bait. In fact, they took, with a great sigh of relief, the intervention of Russia as a mediator to resolve the conflict without having to go to war. So it was a series of lucky intervention that prevented us from that specific situation to explode. One, as I said, was the Russian intervention, but there was an intervention on the side of the people as well, because we are less gullible than we were the first time, and we are more willing to question the information that is given to us to spur specific feelings inside of the people of righteousness and the desire to go to work to defend something that is just imaginary, like freedom and democracy, or the borders of America that is thousands of miles away.
Or regime change, which is also one of the commons in terms of the
Yes.
U.S. Foreign policies that we are seeing now, also are degrading words like democracy, as you just mentioned, which is kind of a shame that, just as you also pointed out in one of your blogs, the word equality has been reduced to being the right for gay people to get married. The same with democracy has now become an excuse for people to go to war. And within this, we are seeing that the more this war propaganda, which is images and attempted proofs of this or that attack or this or that war, are shared around the world in terms of the internet, TV, newspapers, and so forth, then we are caught in this mass paranoia, if we can call it that. You read from this side, this version of the story, you read from the other side, this other complete different version. So how could you say that we can support ourselves or kind of make our mind in relation to all of this information and this propaganda, which is really that?
Well, I think it is important that we understand that we no longer have an independent media, meaning that the media that is supplying 95% of information in the world is owned by those that own the system. So the information that is being spread and supported is an information that is functional to the purpose of moving people in certain specific direction as the system wants them to move. So for those who cannot find peace of mind regarding specific events, they must put in the time to do independent research. I think that now we have this blessing, which is the internet, and which I always see as the cracking point of the system. Because if I imagine 40 years ago, we would have taken everything that we would have been told as gospel, because we would have never had the possibility to check any independent source of information. But now we have this tool that has come into play, and keeping information aligned in a certain way is becoming more and more difficult for the system, because the people who are working to not allow misinformation are becoming stronger, are becoming wiser, are becoming more connected with each other. And some of the information that is with a specific purpose spread around doesn't reach its target anymore. It's like it is stopped before reaching its target. The second point would be that we have to come to a place as well where we understand that we are not yet in a position to have the full story about anything. So it should be enough for each one of us to understand that there is one information going around the world that is tainted, that is purposefully misleading, and therefore to not follow it blindly, get the information that we can get and then let it rest, because the purpose of those information is just to inflame the spirits of the people, so that they will support decision making that makes no sense at all, that will bring no benefit to the people. And it is enough to do whatever we need to do to prevent ourselves from joining into this inflamed state of mind. So if for some it's just enough to switch off the TV, that's fine. And if those who are more prone to researching and look for further information, that's fine too. But to all come to a point where we just don't take the bait anymore. We understand that something is going on that will not benefit any of us, including those on top, even though they might not see it like that at the moment.
That's very important, because we have said many times that war is absolutely unacceptable, and that we can already see the patterns, even more so if you watch documentaries, and we will certainly place a website, warnomore.wordpress.com, wherein you go to the documentary section and you will be able to find more in detail about all of this that we're speaking about, the propaganda brewed in order to rightfully consent war. But we know that it is at times kind of difficult to dissociate yourself from this information and not being able to look at it clearly, because there's this emotional attachment that Eleonora is pointing out here. So, Ele, in relation to this fear-mongering that is taking place in relation to this media or this information, what would you say is being also brewed in relation to how the people that are conducting these wars, how do they benefit precisely from this fear-mongering, if you want to call it that?
Well, a war is a major event that needs quite a bit of consent from the people. And the main purpose is to manufacture the consent, one way or another. So it can come through people being offended at something, or it can come through people being fearful for their own lives, the lives of the people close to them, or making people fearful about the future, the lack of resources, the fact that they might no longer be able to enjoy their lifestyles. It comes in many forms. So each one of us has to check within themselves which are our own weakness points, and become aware to not let the propaganda trigger those points, because the propaganda is targeted at each one of us weaknesses about each other, let's say. So there are those among us who have religious weaknesses, and I deliberately want to call them weaknesses, because those are not points of strength. Because if out of religion we took the teaching of Jesus to not do to other what you would not like to be done unto you, that would be fine, but we are not taking those points. We are taking those points as associations. You know, it's like we are part of a soccer team. So if we are Christians, we are against the Muslim, and if there are the Muslim, they are against the Buddhist. And this is specifically designed this way, so that everybody by association is kept separated from the rest. So we have to look into our weaknesses to make sure that we are not easy targets of the propaganda.
And many times we say, well, you know, it's in the hands of these few individuals that are controlling the whole war scenario. I have nothing to do. But as you pointed out in one of your blogs, the lack of accountability is what is causing precisely these scenarios to be stepping forth more and more, because we, as you just mentioned, we delve into it. So what would you say, us as individuals, regular people, we have no participation in the government and so forth, what should we do, or what's your perspective on what can we do in relation to acknowledging this accountability? Where does it begin? Is it about, you know, informing ourselves only, or is there more to it?
No, I don't think that it's just about informing ourselves. First of all, it is to not accept the idea that it's only a few people at the top that are managing the system, because this is an idea that is deliberately placed there so that people will not move to gather and find solutions together, because they sort of give up before they even start. They believe that there is nothing that can be done to change this system. And unfortunately, this kind of mindset is not only an elite mindset, it has become the majority of people mindset that this system cannot be changed. But I would like to ask, how is it possible that the system cannot be changed if we are for real the 99% or the 90% of the system? And how is it logical to demand that 1% that finds this system not only acceptable but perfect for them, why are we demanding that this 1% turns topsy-turvy to change the system for everybody else, instead of us proposing and agreeing on something that could work for us and make this change happen? So in politics, yes, we are not yet very infiltrated, we could say. Many governments are working to make politics accessible only through money. This is not by chance, of course, because the system is depriving people of money and then making the law that says that you need the money to participate in politics, which is the arena where things can change. But even this is a consequence of the fact that while they were making all these laws, we were looking somewhere else. We were looking at soccer or news, useless news, or something else, because those things have not been happening in secret. Parliament's laws have been passed publicly. We just didn't care until now. So I think that the responsibility that we have is we need to start caring. We need to understand that each one of us is one block of this system, and each one of us counts. Now maybe we cannot infiltrate politics in the way politics has been set up, but there are so many other ways to find solutions that can be brought into the political arena. As well, I don't think that all the people at the very top are in agreement with each other, because, you know, that's the beauty of a conflicting system. There are many people, if you watch the documentary Born Rich, there are people who question the reality of being born on the good side of this system while we leave everyone else behind. So good solutions that work for everybody, that are not spiteful, that are not meant to just disrupt the system for the sake of it, would be considered. Everybody understands that we are in a moment, in that kind of moment that is preceding a revolution, and nobody can guarantee that a revolution comes bloodless. So this is the moment when we can instead turn this anger, if you want, into something useful, that is to design solutions that include everyone, that consider that people should have always had the right to a dignified life. We just didn't understand this when we were born, but we can understand it now. We can say, okay, if this is the kind of world I want, how do I go about it? And then we can talk to other people and design solutions together. There are many valuable people, system designers inside the groups that are not in agreement with the system, that can help to redesign a system that works for everybody, and we should take advantage of that.
Exactly, and also it's to consider that we have that power to create things better. We know that for a fact because we got all these marvelous things and technologies and points of evolution within humanity, but there's also another aspect that we usually place onto the fore, that is the fact that we are the problem that we are seeking to solve as well. And before I continue, I will read Anna's comment. She's saying, cool, Eleonora, so it's basically to stop searching for the truth and rather start by uncovering the lies. This is in relation to, is only looking for information the solution, or is there something more to it?
I think that uncovering the lies is good enough. When we look at a situation, because as I said, it's so complicated to get the whole truth, what we can look at is who benefits from a conflict. And if you can answer that question, you can start to see the truth coming clearer and clearer. So if you take the example of Ukraine and what happened there. So there are many interests at play in Ukraine that were almost not talked about at all in the media. The media talked about the people revolting to an oppressive system, but the media that is owned didn't tell us that the system that replaced the previous system is as abusive as the one before, except that they have Nazi extremists within it as well. So the change has been for the worse.
Yes.
But the change has been in support of some policies that were not signed by the first president, that included the presence of NATO, for example, in the area, or that would allow the IMF and the World Bank to lend money to Ukraine at usury interest as usual, instead of Russia that was lending money before to Ukraine at no interest. So again, every change that we are seeing is for the worse. But we have become blind to see this. We look at the revolt in Ukraine as a natural movement of the people who have now changed the government to benefit the country which was before oppressed. This is a lie. Ukraine is not going to benefit at all from this new association. They're going to be paying their gas double compared to what they paid it before, because before they had an agreement with Russia that they defaulted, and therefore Russia will return to the full rate of the price of gas that they were paying, which means, oh yes, it means that the people will pay the gas double, and at the end, all those changes are always paid by those that are at the bottom of the system.
Yeah,
So,
people in Ukraine were almost like sold the dream of joining the EU and that it was for the best. But look at Greek. Look at what has happened, and more so with these shady plans that we were discussing before the Hangouts. In terms of, well, if Russia stops supplying of gas to the Ukraine, then maybe now the U.S. with its fracking marvelous technique, which is obviously not, it's the most destructive form of obtaining gas, shale gas. Now we'll just have this transatlantic trip to the EU to provide the gas in order to get the before Russian markets. And Russia is now planning to create a pipeline with China. So what we're seeing is actually this whole Ukraine situation dividing once again the world in these East and West powers, just recreating the whole scenario of the Cold War, which if you turn CNN on, you will either see the stories about the plane missing or the Cold War and the brewing Cold War situation. What would you say about this as well?
well, I would say that all these attempts to name a game, like for example, naming the game the Cold War, it's meant to bring up inside of people memories. And those memories are connected to fearful moments that, for example, the Americans lived during the Cold War. But this war was not planned to be a Cold War at all. This war was planned to be a hot war. It was planned to be a normal, ordinary war. So the use of labels as well is part of the propaganda and is part of the mind manipulation to manufacture consent, because people will be suddenly thrown back into the past when they would have supported the war, and now just because they are using the same label, they will find themselves more aligned with the idea of a war than if they didn't. So the thing about Crimea as well, and what went on with the gas story, when Obama came and did his world tour, like Michael Jackson, but much less successful. He did his world tour and he came to look for consent from all the European leaders to join him in sanctioning Russia. But of course, many European leaders were afraid to join this idea because we need the gas from Russia. We are very much gas dependent at the moment. And that's when he promised that we shouldn't fear that because they're building infrastructure to deliver the USA gas obtained through fracking to Europe. And that's what we said before, Marlen. You know, it seems like there is a lot of insanity at the top of the system and a lot of very poor logistic planning. And maybe what scares us most is the idea that there is nobody driving this world. You know, that there is a series of interests colliding that stir the world in this direction and in that direction. But there's very short-sighted planning, and there's absolutely no consideration for the consequences of what we put in place, like the idea of supplying fracked gas to Europe means that they have to increase the fracking in the US. Now, I don't know how they didn't notice that they have holes opening up in streets and roads as a consequence of fracking.
And earthquakes, a lot of them. Also.
Earthquakes, and they're gonna turn their country in what? A Swiss cheese. So is bad planning, poor planning, inconsiderate, but as we said before, we cannot blame anyone at the top because we are the ones missing in action. We are the ones who are not taking a stand for how we see the world should function. So we have become those that just, we have become subject to those decisions or lack of decision, instead of being the moving force of the changes that we see are required in this world.
Yeah, we've become the spectators of this reality that has become almost like a media war as well, and just witnessing the scavenging of the earth, the scavenging of resources, the lack of any form of human rights, or even defining them as some other non-important issues, such as being able to marry a person of the same sex and so forth. And it's important also to place this on the table because those are also topics that are set as mainstream, as a part of what one should be interested or aware of, when we all know, and we've been always saying in these hangouts, how the basics, the living rights of people are simply not being guaranteed. Why? Because we haven't actually created a system that enables that. And this is why we are discussing this within the Living Income Guaranteed Hangouts, that is not only a system that can be in place and everything would be fine, but it actually also integrates the necessity for change at an individual level and within the various institutions and parts of the system, such as media, for example, that is currently, as we've been discussing now, it's feeding quite a lot of warmongering, fear-mongering for the sake of just pleasing the ones that control the media, as Ele was mentioning as well. So in relation to, for example, we were discussing in the last hangout about the wave of action. So I'd like to know your perspective about this as well, and whether we can learn and maybe give direction to it. What's your take on this?
I think that the wave of action is a great opportunity. I see that there has never been such a wonderful opportunity for people gathering together for change. the thing that I see is missing is a sort of grounding, where the idea that we need to change is taken from the demonstration to the people in power that we demand change, but from the demand must come the design of a change. And this design must be brought forward by us. When they had Occupy Wall Street, which was coming from the same sort of feeling, a feeling that we can't take it anymore, we are tired of corruption, we are tired of the system. The complaints that I heard the most by those opposing Occupy Wall Street were, we don't understand what you demand instead. We understand that you are not happy with the system, we understand that you are tired of corruption. What do you want? You want us to jail the people in Wall Street? Okay. Once you jail the people in Wall Street, what are the steps? So the problem that we find is we lack the direction for the steps that we say to the system, which is us. The system is us, by the way. It's not something out there happening on another planet. We say, we see that the change in the system would go from here to there this way. And we bring forward the solution, because many well-meaning people, for sure, as well, that belong to the wave of action, they don't see solutions. They see the problem, which in a way, if you want, is a step ahead from where we were 10 years ago when we didn't see the problem. So, you know, we have taken a step in awareness, like, okay, we are aware that we have some problems here. The next step must be, from these problems, we see how we could bring forth a solution. I just want to say something to you. For example, I've checked the participation of Italy in the Occupy Wall Street movement. We only have one situation that will take place in Bari, in the south of Italy, and is called Interdimensional Intergalactic Autonomy, Ufology Against Capitalism. Interdimensional and intergalactic autonomy, UFO to the people. There's no bank in the space. Now, I just want to say this. How many chances do we have that aliens are coming to save us? So, you see, we are still absolutely misfocused about solutions. We have as many chances of aliens coming to save us as, I don't know, none, close to none, close to below none. Yes. So, and we put this as an event for change. Now, I don't know what kind of change do we expect from such a gathering.
Exactly. And also using the entire process of also tapping onto certain groups that are very interested into transcendental men and UFOs and all of these out there type of solutions that they expect maybe technology to get into. I mean, we have to, for now, kind of step onto this earth and ground ourselves and realize that we have very serious problems here on earth, and that they don't require this massive kind of understanding of the cosmos and the UFOs and whatever, because we have the tools actually on Earth, because it's a problem that it's created on Earth, to create solutions, but we're just not doing it because we rather step in the good feeling of maybe believing in UFOs. So I would also recommend to everyone, we will leave the link to this article called Social Change, We Are the Problem We Are Seeking to Resolve, by Michael Johnson, because it precisely taps onto this, that even if the most perfect system is implemented, the people ourselves that are the system, as Ele was mentioning, we are the ones that make it not work properly. And that is precisely what we've been saying all of this time. Ele, you might agree that we tend to always see, you know, if we implement this great system, then everything will be fine. But not, it won't be so, because we have to change at an individual level. And throughout this hangout, we've also explained what are the ways in which we can support ourselves, developing common sense, which means understanding the problem but not be stuck in it, right? Because then it can
Yes,
become just another entertainment. What would you say about this?
absolutely. There's a lot of entertainment offered for every taste. And we have to consider that the news and warmongering can be the kind of entertainment for a specific taste. So we have to give up much of our entertainment to ground ourselves back into the world. Because, as you said, there are many things that are happening out there that are under the umbrella of wave of action, which are, for example, transcendental meditation, or stepping into the fifth dimension, or, as I read to you in Italy, ufology, and all things that are very out there and very unrelated to the physical reality we live in. We have to see that one point that we can implement is to guarantee a living for everybody. This is a practical point. It doesn't take UFO to implement, or especially we don't have to go to the fifth dimension, because this change has to happen in the third dimension. We have to agree that everybody should be able to have a life on this planet, and that anything less than that is not negotiable. Then, from there, we can build on many other structures that are, for example, suggested by the movement that focuses on technology.
Venus Project and...
Exactly, Venus Project.
Resource-based economy.
Resource-based economy is a great idea, but we have to step out from where we are to give people a chance to access a resource-based economy. So definitely ground ourselves, focus on what's required as the first thing that we need to do, which is to give everyone a chance to live. And in that, wave of action can be a great support, because it could carry our message out there to the people that we have not reached yet.
Exactly, and that's also goes hand in hand with what we're saying here in relation to, yes, being informed, search for alternative views and do your own research, as well as once that you are just informed about the solutions, the news and so forth, then decide what is more tangible, what is more applicable in your direct reality, which most of the times we tend to see the solutions out there, and we are just saying they begin with ourselves and also with the way that we participate, for example, in this warmongering or war propaganda type of situations we're witnessing in the internet and on our TVs. So in order to finish up, any last words in relation to this topic generally, or any other point of maybe practical suggestions for people that might be at this moment maybe wondering where to place attention to, for example?
Well, I think that the living income guaranteed would be a good start to place the attention of the people on, because, as we said, it's a practical solution. It is absolutely erroneous to say that we don't have the funds to implement a living income guaranteed. There are so many ways that some of which we have considered, for example, like diverting the war money into a living support for everybody. That is something that we can do immediately, that we can implement easily, because all the systems are already in place to grant people access to a living income. And if anyone has ideas or is an expert in any kind of systemic design and want to join our research, they can go on the Living Income Guarantee proposal, check it out, make suggestions, spread it around, start to ponder about this as a solution that would change the life of everybody for real. And we can take it from there.
Yeah, exactly. It's about stepping outside of this lack of being granted the right to life, so that then we can also have more time to, for example, research more about the proposal that we are describing in the living income proposal, and seeing what could work better, join forces with other people as well, because that's the whole point. We have to create this change. It won't come from just ourselves as a group. We are actually inviting everyone, and that's why we also support a wave of action as our own proposal, which means it is a palpable, physical, feasible way to change the system without having to oppose it to create further violence or our own inner war, so to speak, against the system, as that is also another form of war propaganda now that we are looking at it. So we are all about proposing solutions, opposing anyone, rather inviting anyone to join in for this solution that stands for what we see is best for everyone, because it's our right to life. So thanks a lot, Ele, for being here in this hangout today.
Thank you, Marlen.
And we'll see you guys on another live Google Hangout next Sunday. An announcement to be made is that we will go back to the schedule of 6 p.m. UCT time. And if you don't know what that implies in your time frames, there will be links in the Living Income Facebook page where you will be able to do your own accountings or your own
time calculation.
Time calculations, yeah, that's a process. So thanks a lot for watching, and see you next week then, 6 p.m. at that time. Thanks, bye.
Bye.